It's time to talk about some Marvel movies that are not a part of the MCU. What's going on, guys? I'm Chris, and welcome back to another video. Today, I'm talking about my top 10 favorite non-MCU Marvel movies. Now, sometimes I feel like we all, including myself, get caught up in the MCU, and trust me, I love the MCU. It's one of the most successful franchises ever, and one of my favorite movie franchises of all time. And with WandaVision in full steam as Episode 3 comes out tomorrow, I decided I would sit down and talk about my favorite movies that are not a part of the MCU. So, the Fox movies, the Raimi Spider-Man trilogy, the animated movies. There's a ton of movies that are Marvel properties that just aren't a part of the MCU. Definitely hit the like button, comment down below your favorite non-MCU Marvel movies. Do you agree with my list? Do you disagree? Let me know down below in the comments, and if you haven't already, please consider subscribing. It would mean the world. I've got a ton of content planned, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any future videos. So I'm just going to get right into this thing. Coming in at number 10 is going to be The Amazing Spider-Man. This movie came out in 2012, stars Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man, and I just did a recent watch of this on Jaren Talks Movies channel, and the movie is just decent to me. It's nothing spectacular, but it's not terrible like a lot of people make it out to be. I just think that it's a middle-of-the-road Marvel movie. The relationship between Peter and Gwen carries this movie for me. They just have the best live-action Spider-Man relationship, in my opinion, and it's not really close. The lizard villain, meh, to me. I don't really care for him. His motivation, while it is there on paper, the execution by Rhys Ifans is not my favorite, and I wish that Peter had more of a relationship with the villain, similar to a Norman Osborn or a Alfred Molina Doc Ock from the Raimi Spider-Man movies. There's about 45 minutes of character development leading up to the actual events of the movie, basically. And to me, I already know Spider-Man, so in my opinion, it's like I don't really need this 45-minute thing to get to know these characters. Now, it totally works for some people, and I understand why they did it. For me, it's just not my cup of tea, and I wish they went about it a different way. But I can't fault the movie for that. It still has a great Uncle Ben and a great Aunt May, and that relationship really works. So there's highlights here, and there's some blame moments here, but it's not a bad movie. Coming in at number 9 is going to be Spider-Man 3. That's right, Sam Raimi Spider-Man 3. This is one of the most overhated movies ever, and while I myself am not over the moon about it, I still think it's a really solid conclusion to the trilogy, taking into account how much studio interference there was. Literally, Venom could have been cut from this movie. If you cut Venom and you cut some of the cringy, like, emo Peter Parker stuff, this movie really works. Sandman, Flint Marko, played by Thomas Hayden Church, is one of the most compelling villains, because he's not a villain. He's just a dude who gets put in this crappy situation, and the shot of him with his hand when his daughter's necklace falls through, it really does break your heart. The MJ and Peter relationship is fine here. I've never been huge on MJ. Harry and his redemption arc throughout the movie. Very powerful stuff, especially in the final act. I will not spoil what happens, but there's a moment between him and Pete that honestly gets the waterworks going a little. The action in the final battle of this movie is fine. Like, Sandman should have been the main focus of this movie, is the main fault that I have with it. And 2 hours and 20 minutes, please explain why it's that long. I genuinely don't know. It's because they shoehorned in Venom for some reason. But if you cut out the symbiote and Venom and all that fluff, I think this movie would have been a lot more fine-tuned and possibly set up a fourth Spider-Man movie even better. We didn't get the Spider-Man 4, but hey, this movie's solid, and while it is the weakest of the three, I think there's a lot of fun to be had with it. Coming in at number 8 for me is going to be X-Men First Class, the first of the prequel X-Men movies, if you will. That came out in 2011, and the reason this movie is on the list is because McAvoy, who plays Professor X, and freaking Michael Fassbender, who plays Magneto, kill it in these roles. They embody Ian McKellen and Patrick Stewart to perfection, while also bringing their own little take on the role. And to me, it was so nice to see an X-Men movie that didn't rely on Logan/Wolverine. Just seeing them assemble the team and like the early workings of the X-Men was awesome. I think Magneto, though, steals the show. Michael Fassbender, please give him more roles. He's great as Steve Jobs, and he is so humanized as Magneto. You see his relationship with Professor X forming this team and how it all starts to go downhill, and you get the backstory on why Professor X is in the wheelchair and why these two are essentially at odds, and it just works so well. One of the better X-Men movies for sure, and a great Wolverine cameo.
Excuse me, I'm Eric Lensher.
Sounds Xavier.
Go fuck yourself.
Coming in at number 7 for me is going to be Deadpool 2. Now, I think that the consensus is this movie is good, not as good as the first. I'd say it's a close second to the first. When I first saw this movie, I actually liked it more than the first Deadpool. Now, I still enjoy the first Deadpool more. We'll talk about that in a second. But Cable is really the element that adds to this movie that makes it so much better. Josh Brolin as Cable is hilarious. Seriously, so funny. And the jokes Deadpool bounces off him I'm thinking of this one scene where Deadpool is kind of regrowing his limbs. man, there's some hilarious bits there. And there's actually a scene that one of the best comic book scenes ever, where they're jumping out of the plane, the X-Force, and Thunderstruck is playing. That is cinema. That is so good. But Deadpool 2 is just a fun time. I can't fault the movie, and I really am pumped that we're getting a Deadpool 3 rated R in the MCU. Sign me up for that. Take my money, Kevin Feige. You are a mastermind, and I trust you. Coming in at number 6 for me, now this might be a hot take, it'd probably be a lot of you guys' number 1, is Logan. Now, this is a movie that actually got nominated for Best Screenplay, rightfully so. I personally think Hugh Jackman should have been nominated for Best Actor, and possibly Patrick Stewart for Best Supporting Actor. Again, the Academy is corrupt, in my opinion, when it comes to nominating non-certain genre movies. Like, they don't really pay respect to comic book movies or horror movies. They're starting to come around to comic book movies, but that's a topic for another time. I really do like Logan quite a bit, especially about the last 30 minutes when he goes full-on berserker, when he injects himself with the fluids and just rages out the one last time. The villain, Boyd Holbrook, I believe, is the actor who plays him. He does a really solid job here. And the clone of Logan is a little off-putting to me. It doesn't work as much as other aspects, but seeing a broken down Logan, a final send-off to him, and even from the opening scene when he's just drinking and then he beats up all the dudes that try and jump him, like, that is pure what I wanted from this movie. It's a beautiful send-off to the character of Wolverine. But before I give you guys my top 5, definitely hit the like button and comment down below your favorite non-MCU Marvel movies. I'm interested to have a discussion down below, because I feel like some of these movies get overshadowed by the MCU sometimes. So coming in at number 5 for me is going to be another X-Men movie, X-Men Days of Future Past. I vividly remember seeing this movie in theaters in 2014. It sucked me in from the start with the Sentinels attacking the X-Men, and then Wolverine has to go back in time and meet up with a McAvoy and Fassbender portrayals of the Magneto and Professor X characters. Like, that right there, you put time travel in a superhero movie, it's most likely going to be pretty high on my list. The way that it's all crafted together in the end and how it kind of reset the Fox X-Men timeline, I think it was a brilliant move, because a lot of people were upset with the events of X-Men Last Stand. I've never been crazy about that first trilogy in general. This kind of wiped the slate clean, if you will. I don't know if they're ever going to return to that, but we cannot talk about this movie without mentioning Evan Peters' Quicksilver scene. That's all I really have to say. I hope that he comes back in the MCU and we see time start to slow down, and then we see his footsteps run up, an epic song starts to play, and then he goes and starts to save everyone. That is what I want to see. I mean, he's in the cast of WandaVision, we'll have to see. But Days of Future Past is probably the best X-Men movie, in my opinion. And what I mean by that is, put Logan and Deadpool aside, X-Men movies with X-Men in the title, I gotta go Days of Future Past. Coming in at number 4 for me is gonna be Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 2. I know you guys probably didn't expect me to say that, but this is a really solid comic book movie, do not get me wrong. Doc Ock is one of the better comic book villains, and seeing Peter Parker's struggles with his relationship with MJ and just seeing how he kind of is trying to refine his identity as Spider-Man is very compelling. Now, the whole entire plot of him losing his powers is a little cheesy to me, and I've never fully grasped how it's even possible. And that's just a nitpick, but still, it's always irked me that he just loses his powers because he doesn't feel like being Spider-Man anymore because he's distracted by MJ. Whatever it may be, it never worked for me, but I can't deny the train scene. Everyone hypes it up. It delivers. It's one of the best action scenes from comic book movies. And the iconic shot of him holding the, going like that with the webs in the building, you know what I'm talking about. It's great stuff. The final moment where Doc Ock realizes he's not a villain, and I believe he says, "I will not die a monster." It's a great quote from the movie, and then he essentially saves the world. So I thoroughly enjoy Spider-Man 2, but it's not my favorite from the trilogy. Coming in at number 3 is going to be Deadpool. Now, this movie is a blast. Like, you talk about a movie you want to throw on, have a good laugh with some friends, and just escape. This is Deadpool for me. Anytime it would be on FX, back when I had cable, it would be on FX, I would throw it on and just have to have it on as background noise, and I'd look up every few minutes and just be entertained by it. I think Ryan Reynolds was born to play this role, and he fully embraces it here. I cannot wait for Deadpool 3, which, like I talked about, I cannot wait to see him make his return. Ajax is a great villain, and just Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool, man. Those one-liners get me every single time. Deadpool is up there for me, and I think it's probably my personal favorite from the X-Men universe. Not best, but my favorite, the one that I've rewatched the most. Coming in at number 2 is going to be Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, the Oscar winner for Best Animated Feature that I think could possibly be the best Spider-Man movie. Now, personal preference aside, I honestly think it could just be the best made Spider-Man movie. You've got Miles Morales, Spider-Gwen, Peter B. Parker, all these different Spider-Men coming on the screen in a gorgeously animated film to deliver a story about Miles Morales and taking the leap of faith. really embracing who you are, having that confidence to go out. Anyone can wear the mask. This movie has all these different themes that come together beautifully to create one of, if not the greatest animated movies of all time. I could rewatch Spider-Verse any day of the week. You get this relationship with Uncle Aaron and Miles that rips your heart out. There's a lot of moments where this movie doesn't hold back for a PG kids movie, especially regarding a Chris Pine Peter Parker. I will not spoil it if you haven't seen it. But early on, they lay it all out there for you. Kingpin's a compelling villain, and just family and the leap of faith. All of it just, there's so many gorgeous moments in this movie that just work. The shoulder touch. Gotta love it. Taking my top spot, coming in at number 1, is going to be Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, the original from the Raimi trilogy. I think this is one of the few comic book movies that just brings me so much joy when I watch it, because I'm transported back to my childhood when I watched these movies growing up on DVD. Green Goblin, Norman Osborn, is one of those iconic villains who I'll never get out of my head, and the final fight between him and Spidey is the most brutal Spider-Man content we've got to this day, in my opinion, when they're just wailing on each other, and you see Spider-Man's mask getting destroyed, and Green Goblin's just wailing on him. And ultimately, you know what happens with Willem Dafoe and like that whole plot, how it affects Harry and Peter's relationship. This is the classic origin story, in my opinion. The Uncle Ben relationship with Peter is the best it's ever been on the big screen. When Uncle Ben dies and he just says, "Peter," and then you see the look in Tobey Maguire's eyes and the rage that follows immediately after as he tries to hunt down the killer. It just works for me. Everything about it, the cheesiness from Sam Raimi, the over-the-top aspects from the early 2000s still translate to me this day because it fits that time period. It's like looking through a time capsule. It's a period of time that fits perfectly because it feels like a comic book on the big screen. And I will always love that first Spider-Man movie. It ends on such a high with that great final swing and you see him land on the American flag. It's just very symbolic from the period of the time that it came out. Every time I watch it, I get a smile on my face. And it's my favorite non-MCU Marvel movie. So that's going to do it for my top 10 favorite non-MCU Marvel movies. What do you guys think of my list? Let me know yours down below. Do you agree with my picks? Do you disagree? I'd love to have a conversation with you. Definitely hit the like button. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing to the channel. It will mean the world. I've got a lot of content planned. Actually doing a live watch party of WandaVision with my girlfriend Cam, 3 a.m. Eastern on Friday morning, so tomorrow early in the morning. Stay tuned for that. The replay will be up, and I've got a lot of WandaVision content planned, a lot of stuff in general planned for the rest of the year, so just stay tuned for that. The support lately has meant the world, guys. You all are the best. If you're watching this video, thank you so, so much. If you've ever clicked on a video in general or showed support at all, it means the world. Hope you all have a great rest of your day, and until next time, I'll see you guys later.